Hi friends, I'm Parvez and welcome to my new course on Flask and Vue 3. So in this course we're going to learn how you can build your backend API in Flask and how you can integrate that with the Vue 3 or VueJS. Now before starting our main topic, if you want to support me and if you want to support my works, you can just support me on my Patreon page. I have added the link in the video description and you can support me through my Patreon page. Now let's just check that what we are going to build, and if you see, you can see that I have my app.py file, and also these are my VueJS codes. Now if I click on the create, and in here I can add a new article, so I can just say this is the new data added, and I can just say this is the new description added, and I can just copy and paste this, and after that I'm going to just click on the publish article, and you can see that I have this is the new article added. And if I click on this, you can see that I am in the details page, and you can see that this is the ID, and this is the ID. Now I can update and delete. I can update this. So if I click on this, you can see that I'm navigating to the edit page, and in here I have the ID, and in here I can just say updated. And let me just remove this. This is also updated, and if I click on the update article, so now you can see that this is updated. So this is the new article added, updated, and you can see that this is also updated. Now if you see the database, I'm using MySQL database for this, and if you see it's also updated. Let me just click on the Flask. So this is my database name, and I can just go to the articles table, and you will see that my data is also updated in here. So now you can see that this is the new article added, updated, and you can see this is also updated. Now I want to delete this. And I can just click on the delete. You can see that I'm navigated to the home page, and that the article is deleted. And now I have two. If you see your MySQL database, you'll see that now I have two, and you can see that now I have two article or data in here. Now let's just start our course. Now let's create our backend API. For this we need to install some libraries. So the first one is Flask. As you know, it's a simple framework for building complex web application, and it's Flask is a lightweight WSGI web application framework. It is designed to make getting started quick and easy. So now Flask is a micro web framework, and it's powerful. After Django, it's the second most popular web framework for Python programming language. Now first of all, you need to install Flask. You can just use pip install Flask, and in here, so I've already created a virtual environment, and you can just say pip install Flask. And after installation of the Flask, we need another extension or library that's called Flask SQLAlchemy, and it's an extension for Flask that adds support for SQLAlchemy to your application. And it aims to simplify using SQLAlchemy with Flask by providing useful defaults and extra helpers. So we need to install this, and we can just copy this and pip install Flask SQLAlchemy. So after installation of the SQLAlchemy, because we are using MySQL database, then we need to install MySQL client. Now you can set up Flask SQLAlchemy with different databases like Postgres, SQLite, MySQL database, and particularly we want to use MySQL database. Now for that you need to install MySQL client. So we can just say pip install MySQL client, and now we are waiting for this. Okay, Flask SQLAlchemy has been installed. Now MySQL client, and after MySQL client we need to install Flask Marshmallow. Now it is Flask Marshmallow is a thin integration layer for Flask, and Marshmallow is an object serialization or deserialization library that adds additional features to Marshmallow, including URL and hyperlinks fields. So because before sending the data to the front end, we need to serialize the data. For that, we are going to use Flask Marshmallow. So we can just use pip install Flask Marshmallow for the installation. Also, because we are using SQLAlchemy, also it's good to install Marshmallow SQLAlchemy. And okay, now the installation has been completed. Now let's create our first Flask application. So I've created a folder at the name of backend, and here I'm going to just create a new file and I'm going to just call it app.py. So the first thing is that we need to import Flask. So we can just say from Flask we are going to import Flask. Now after doing this, we need to create the object of the Flask. So we can just say Flask and we can pass underscore name like this. Okay, now let's create our route. So we can just say app.route. Now if you don't know about the Flask, I have a complete 4 hours training on Flask Web Development. I have added the link to the video description, you can just check it. So we're going to just use index and we can just give methods. Now by default, if you don't give any method, that's get. So but we want to give it explicitly. And after that, we're going to just say def get, or for example we can just say def get articles. Now we can just first we need to import JSONify. So JSONify, and in here we can return JSONify and we can just say hello world. Now if you're using Flask as a full stack, then in here you can render your template, but because we are using Flask just as our backend, so for right now we are going to just say return this hello world. Now after doing this, now we need to run our Flask application. So in here we can just say underscore name underscore main, and we can just say app.run, and we want to make the debug to true. Now if you're in the production level, then you don't need to add this. Because we are in the development mode, we can just make the debug to true. Now there are different ways that you can run your Flask application in Visual Studio Code. The easiest way is that we can just, in here we can just press F5, and from here we can choose Flask, and you can just copy the backend path, that where your app.py is located, and you can just paste it in here, and after that hit enter. Now we are waiting for the running of the Flask or Flask application, and you can see it will run in the debug console. It will run the Flask application, and we can just wait for this. So now you can see it running on this local host. Now let's just check this, and we can just say localhost port 5000, and now you can see that we have hello world in here. Now if I change this to get, you will see that I'm receiving an error, because right now the route is changed and it's not index, it's for example get. So you can give it whatever you want, but for example in here I want it should be get. Now if I check this, so now you can see that not found, and if I go to the get, you can see that we are receiving hello world. Now let's just test this with the postman, and I'm going to just copy and paste it in here. So the method is get, and we can send So now you can see that we are receiving hello world in here. And now we want to create our database and table. So as I've already said that we are using MySQL database. So for that I'm using WAMP server, and I have opened my phpMyAdmin, and in here I'm going to create a new database. So you can just call it whatever. So for example, I'm going to just call it, for example, Flask, or we can just say Flask backend, we can just say Flask. So after that, click on the create. So now we can see that database is created. Right now there is no table in this database because we want to create the tables using SQLAlchemy. So now let's just create our table. So the first thing is that we need to import the SQLAlchemy. So we can just say from Flask SQLAlchemy import SQLAlchemy. And now let's create this in here. We need to add our configuration. So the first one is we can just say app.config, and in here we can just say SQLAlchemy database URI. Okay, now in here you need to choose what database you want. So if you see the SQLAlchemy documentation, there are different databases. You can see that this is the database URI that you need to add. So let me just make it like this. So SQLAlchemy database URI, and after that if you come down, you can see that there are different databases, Postgres, MySQL, and they have different configuration. So we can just copy this and we can add this in here like this. So this is the MySQL. For example, if you're using SQLite, you can change this to SQLite, or Postgres, you can change this to Postgres. So in my case it's MySQL. I'm choosing MySQL. After that you need to give the username, so that's root, and I don't have any password for that, so I can just leave it blank. This is localhost, and this is the database name, that is Flask. Also we need to just add another configuration, even though it's not important, but if you don't add this you'll receive a warning. And in here we can just say track, so track, and we can just say modifications. So SQLAlchemy track modifications, and we want to make this to false. So now we have created our configuration, and after doing this in here we can just say db SQLAlchemy, and we need to pass the app in here. Now it's time to create our table. Right now we have our database, our Flask database, but there is no table. So we can create our class, and I'm going to just call it, for example, article, or you can just say article, so whatever you want. And it extends from db.model. After this you need to specify the fields that you want. So I want it should be an ID field, db.column, and it is db.integer, and I want the primary key should be true. Now let's create another one that is title, and db.column, and this is db.text, not text. For this we are going to use a string, and we want to specify, for example, 100 character. Let's just copy this. So another one is this is text, and I don't need this 100 in here. Also we can add a date, so date db.column db.datetime, and we can add a default for this. And first we need to import datetime. We can just say import datetime, datetime.now. So now let's create our init method in here. So init, and we are going to add our title and description in here. So this is also not title, but this is description. Okay, or we can just say body. So you can just give, for example, I'm going to just give it body. So body. So we're going to add our title and body in here, and the idea is about to create it, and also we don't need to add the date because it will be added automatically when we create our, for example, our articles. Now let's just say solve dot title. We want to initialize this, so solve dot title to title and solve dot body to the body. So now we have created our table, but right now this table is not added to our database that we have created, to our Flask database. Now we need to add this, so for that we can just change to the backend, change directory to the backend, and we can just open our Python terminal. And in here the first thing is that you need to, from app, we are going to import db. So after importing the db, and you can just easily say db dot create all. And now let's check this Flask database. You can see that we have a table of articles with the fields of ID, title, body, and also date. Alright guys, now we have created our database and also tables. Now it's time to serialize our data. So for this we have already said that we are using Flask Marshmallow, and it's a library or extension that's used for serialization or deserializations of the data. Now before sending the data to the front end, we need to serialize that. So first we need to import Flask Marshmallow. So from Flask Marshmallow we are going to import Marshmallow, and in here we need to create the object of Marshmallow, and we can pass the app in here. So after doing this we need to create our schema. So in here I can create class article schema, and we can just say marshmallow.schema. And after doing this we can create our class meta. Now we can specify the fields that we want to serialize, so we can just add ID, so title, we have body, and we have date. And after doing this, now let's create our schema object in here. So we can just use article schema, and this is article schema. Now this is for one article. For example, if you want to serialize one article, then we can use this article schema. Now for example, if you want to serialize a query set, for that we need to use money to true. So we can just copy this and paste it in here, and we need to add money to true in here. And let's change this to article schema. So after doing this, now let's create our route. So right now we have just get article route, and we want to create another route that's for adding the article. So right now in here it's just returning a JSON file. Okay, now in here we can just say, let me copy this from here, and we can paste it in this section. This is add, and the method is post, and let's just say diff add article. So we need to import request in here, so we can just say import request, and so let's create the title, and we can just say request.json. We need to pass the title, and we can just copy this one for the body. So body, and this should be body. So after doing this, we need to create the object of our table, class table. So that is class articles. So in here we can just say, for example, articles, and we can pass the title and also the body in here. After doing this, we need to add this to the database. So we can just say db.session.add, and we want to add the articles. And also we need to commit the database. So db.session.commit. And at the end, we can just return post schema. So because it's just one article, so for that we need to just return, not post schema, sorry, article schema. So we can just say article schema dot JSONify, and we can pass our this articles. So now the add article is it's prepared to okay, now I'm going to open my Postman, and in here let's just copy this. Let's create another tab, and we are going to check that we can add something in here or not. Let's just change this to post, and we can grab this. So go to the body, and after the body we want to choose the row, and from here it should be JSON, and this is the title. So this is the title, and we can copy this. We need to add a body or description. We can say this is the body. So now let's just send. Okay, now you can see that we are receiving 200 OK, and we have, this is the body, we have the date, this is the date, this is the ID, and this is the title. And now if we get our this okay, now right now we cannot get because we haven't created the get route till now. So if you see now your database table articles, we have a new data with ID 1 in here. Now we can add another one, so let's just add another one. This is the second title, this is the second body, and we can just send. You can see that the ID 2 is added, and now if we check Flask, so let me just check the articles, you can see that we have another data with the second ID in this section. So this was the adding. Now let's change the get articles, because in here we want to just get the article instead of JSONify. So now we can just say all articles, and we can just say articles dot query dot all. We want to query over all articles, and after doing this we are going to just create results, and we can just add our schema in here. So articles schema, so because this time we are going to use a query set, so for that we need to just use the articles schema, and we can just say dot dump, and we want to add our all articles in here. And after that we can just say return JSONify the results. So now let's just check this, that we can get our 2 articles or not. So this time we can just go to the get. So now if I send to, if I request the get, so you can see that I am receiving the two articles in here with, so this is the first one, then this is the second one. And also if you go to the local host, now you can see that we have the two articles in here. Now let's create another route, and that's for getting the specific details of the article according to ID. For right now, if I, for example, get the, for example, first article, and if I send, you'll see that I am receiving error. And you can see that I'm receiving error. So for that, we need to create another route in here, and I'm going to just copy this and paste it in here. And so this should be get, and we want to get according to the ID, and the method is get. So now let's just say diff, for example, post details or whatever you want, and we can pass ID in here. And now let's just say post, or we can just say article, article, so for one article, and we can just say articles dot query dot get. We are going to use get, and we want to get that according to the specific ID. And now we can just return, because it's one, so for that we can just use article schema dot JSONify, and now we can pass the article in here. So now this time if I hit this URL and the postman, you'll see that I'm not receiving any error, and I will receive the first ID article. So now let's just check this. So now let's just send. Now you can see that I'm receiving the first article in here. If I change this to second, and if I send, you can see that I am receiving the ID2 data. And if I get, you can see that I am receiving the whole data, so the first ID and the second ID in here. Let's work on our update functionality. So let me just copy this route, and at the bottom we are going to create our update. So we can change this to update. We want to update according to the ID, and the method is put. Okay, now let's create our div update article, and we want to pass the ID. So the first thing is that we need to get the article, and we can just say articles dot query dot get, and we want to get a specific article according to the ID, so we can pass our ID in here. After that, we need to get the title and also the body, so we can just say request, so request dot JSON, and this is title, and we want to do the same for the body, so request dot JSON, and this is body. Now we need to set our title and also body, so we can just say article dot title to the title, and article dot body, this should be body. And at the end we need to just commit the database, and we want to return our article schema because it's just one article, so we want to use article schema dot JSONify, and we can pass the article like this. So now let's check this update, and for this let me just copy this from here, and we can create a new tab, and let's just add this in this section, and this should be update, and I want to update the first one. And also let's also copy the data from here, So let me just copy this, or we will change the ID. So we can just go to the body. After that we can choose row, and from here we need to choose JSON. And so let me just remove this ID, because ID and date, so we want it should be just body and title. So body updated and title updated. Now let's just send, and we are receiving error. Let's check that where is the error. Oh, and the error is this, it's not get, it is put. Sorry for this. And now let's just send this again, and now you can see that this is the second body updated, and also we have the title. This is also updated. And now if you get this, so you can see updated body and title updated. And also the same will be for the our MySQL database. And if you see, we will see the newly updated data in here. Let's just go to the Flask, and you can see that this is updated. You can see this is updated, and also this is updated. And the last functionality is deleting the data. So now let's create data. I'm going to just copy this, and I can add this in here. So this is delete, and we want to delete according to the ID, and the method is delete. Now let's create article delete, and we want to delete according to the ID. Let's just get the articles, so we can use the articles dot query dot get. We can pass the ID, and now we can just say db dot session dot delete, and we want to delete the article. And at the end we also want to commit, so dot commit, and we can just return post article schema dot JSONify, and we can pass the article. So article, so it is db the article. Now let's just check this URL endpoint in the Postman, and so we can create a new tab, and in the new tab we can just copy this. We want to delete the first one, the first ID. Let's change this to delete, and change this to delete. Now let's just send, and now you can see that we are receiving 200 OK. And now if I get again, you will see that I have just one. You can see that I have just one data with ID 2, and if you see in here, you can see I have one data, and the same will be for the MySQL database, and you'll see that the first data is gone, and that is deleted. Alright guys, now it's time to work on our front end. We have already created our Flask REST API. Now as we have already said that we are using VueJS, and especially we are using Vue 3. So you can see V3, this is the version, Vue 3 version. And first of all, what's VueJS? Now if you see the documentation of the VueJS, Vue, pronounced like Vue, is a progressive framework for building user interfaces. Unlike other monolithic frameworks, Vue is designed from the ground up to be incrementally adoptable. The core library is focused on the Vue layer only and is easy to pick up and integrate with other libraries or existing projects. Now we are using Vue 3 and it's one of the best UI framework. Now let's just learn that how we can install this. There are different ways that you can install VueJS. And if you see the installation process, so the first way is that you can easily, if you want for prototyping or learning purposes, you can just add this CDN link and you can work, or you can download self-host files, and another way is using the npm node package manager. And the way that we are going to learn that CLI, so Vue provides an official CLI for quickly scaffolding ambitious single-page applications, and it provides batteries included build setups for a modern front-end workflow. So we are using CLI. Now for the CLI, the first thing is that you need to install Vue CLI globally. So if you're using Yarn, you can use Yarn, or if you're using npm, you can use npm. So I've already installed it. You can use -g for global installation. Now after installation of the Vue CLI, now let's create our Vue application. So we can just say Vue create, and after that you need to give the name of the project. So we are going to use frontend, so Vue create frontend, and after that hit enter. So now it will take some time, and the installation process will take some time, and we are going to wait for the installation. So now we need to pick a preset. So we're not going to use Vue 2, but we want to use default Vue 3, and we can come down, so default Vue 3 preview, and after that hit enter. So now we are waiting for the installation, and now you can see that we have a front-end folder in here. Alright guys, now the installation process has been completed, and you can see in the front end we have a bunch of files and folders. So this is our node modules. Now this is the place that our modules are located, and we have a public folder. In here we have an icon and also index.html, and you can see that in here we have ID app, and after that we have another source folder. Now this is the important folder. This is the place that we will work a lot. We have an asset folder that we will add our assets, and we have a components folder, and in here for right now we have just a hello world.vue, and it's a simple component. And also we have app.vue, and so this is our app.vue, and in the app.vue we are rendering our this hello world.vue. So if you see in here we have import hello world from .components, and in here we are rendering this hello world, and this is our main.js. Now in here you can see that our app is mounted, and this app is where we have saw this is in our public folder and in the index.html. So now let's just change the directory, and we want to run our front-end application in here. So we can just change the directory to cd frontend, and after that we can just run npm run serve. So we can just say npm run serve, and now we are waiting. So now you can see that now we can go to the localhost port 8080, and we can just say localhost 8080, and now you can see that this is our welcome to your VueJS app. And in here, for example, if I change this to let me just remove this, and in here I can just say welcome to Flask and VueJS, and now we can just save this, and now let's just check. So now you can see that we have welcome to Flask and VueJS. Now let's create our navbar. So we are using Bootstrap navbar. So for this, for using Bootstrap, we need to install Bootstrap. Now there are different ways that you can install Bootstrap. We are going to just use npm, so we can just use npm install Bootstrap, and if you're using jQuery you can do it like this, and after that hit enter. So make sure that you change the directory to the front end. Now we are waiting for the installation. Now the installation has been completed, and let's create our so let me close some files from here, and let me close this app.py file, and in the front end in the component, so source component, we are going to create a new file and we want to call it navbar.vue, and also we need to add the Bootstrap in our main.js. so in here we can just say import bootstrap .css bootstrap.main.css. okay, so after doing this, now we need to create our Vue application, and I'm using an extension in here, so that's called Vitor, and I've already installed, and it will using Vitor you can easily create your, so you can see Vitor, using that you can easily create your VueJS application. So for example, we can just say template, you can do it like this. So this is the template, and after that you can create your script, and for example like this, and or you can just say view, and now this is our template script, and also this is the style if you want to add. Right now let me just in here say in the h1 tag, and I can just say this is our navbar, and now we need to add this navbar to the app.vue. so right now if you see in here we have hello world component, and we don't need this anymore. We can just remove this with the logo, and in here we can import navbar from components navbar.vue and change this to navbar. So now if you see, we will see this this is our navbar. So we're receiving navbar. Okay, we have registered navbar but we haven't used it, and now we can just use our navbar in here like this, and now you will see that we have our navbar the text in here, and now we can see that this is our navbar. okay, now let's create so the first thing is that I'm going to remove this style. I don't need this style anymore, and after that let's just open our Bootstrap website, and there are different type of navbar, and I think it's good. We will use this and we will make this according to our choice. So we can just copy this and we can open our navbar.vue, remove this h1 tag, paste it in here, and so we need to bring some change. So the first thing is that I think we don't need this. We want to just leave this one in here, and we don't need this disable, and also we don't need this button. We will change this a tags, a anchor tags with the router links from the VueJS. So for right now we are going to just leave it like this, but we will make bring changes to this. So now if we see, so now you can see that we have our navbar. This is our home and pricing. Now let's bring this in here, and we can change that from this section. So I think it's MS Auto. And now you can see this is our navbar and this is our home and pricing. Also let's change this flight, and because we don't need that, we don't want that the navbar should take hold the page, and we want it should be as a container. Now you can see that it is looking good. Now let's talk about the routers, Vue3 routers. Now if you see the official documentation of VueJS, now we need to install routers, so we can just use npm install vue router at 4, or if you're using yarn you can use this comment. So let's just copy this, and we can just change directory to the front end, and in here we are going to install Vue router. So now let's just wait for the completion of the installation. Okay, now the installation has been completed, and let's create our routers file. So I'm going to just, in the source folder, I want to create a new file, and I'm going to just call it routers.js. Now in the routers.js, so first let me just close these files. Okay, now so first we need to import, so we can just so if you see the official documentation, so first we need to import create router and also create web story from the Vue router. So we can just say import, so create router and also create web history from Vue router. So create router and create web story from the Vue router. And also we need to create some components in here. So first we are going to create two components. So the first one is home.view, and in here I can just say in the h1 tag I can just say this is our home, and let's just create another file and create.view, and let's create our view in here, and we can just say h1, and let me just say create page. Okay, so now let's just import these two components. So import home from components, and it is home, so we can just say dot or dot components and home, and also we need to import another one. So we have our home, and also this is create. So create. After this, let's create our routes in here. So we can just say const routes, and it is an array of dictionary. Okay, now first we need to specify the path. So in here I'm going to use the index path for the home page, and also you need to give the name of the name for the route. So we are going to just give it home, and also the component itself. So the component is home. So this is our first route. Let's create another route, and we can just say I'm going to just copy this and paste it in here. So the path is create, and this should be create, and the component is create. Okay, now these are two routes. Now let's create our router in here, and I'm going to just say const router, and we can create our router in here, create router. So the first thing is we need to add the history, and it should be create web history, and also we need to pass the routes in here, and at the end we need to just export this over this file. So we can just say export default router. Now after creating of the routers.js, we need to add that in our main.js. So let me just close this home, let me just close this create, and we want to open our main.js, and we need to add that in here. So first we need to import this. Okay, now in here I can just say import router from routers, and let's create const app. So now we can just say app.mount and app.use, and we want to use our router in here. Okay, now after doing this, now let's open our app.view, and we need to add our router view in here. So so let me just, okay, now after the navbar we can just say router, not like this, so router view like this, and we need to just, let's just create a div class, and we can just say, for example, div id app, and let's add these two in here. So now let's open our navbar.view, and we need to bring changes to this navbar. So the first one is that we are going to just create a router link. So router link, and let's close the router link. We can give the class, so the class we want to use this navbar brand, and also we want to give it 2. So we want it should be for our home page like this, and in here I can just say Flask and Vue3 and Vue3. Okay, so now let's just remove this. We don't need this a class. So now we have our router. Let's just copy this, and we want to create. So when we want to create for the our home page. Now let me just change this to router link. So router link, and we can just close the router link in here. So router link. So this is the home, and for the class we want to use btn button. So we can just say btn, so btn primary, it should be primary, I think, primary, and we can change this to router link. So router link, let's close the router link in here, and this should be create, and for the create we want it should be btn success, and so at the top also we need to add a 2 in here. So instead of this we can just add a 2, and for the 2 we want it should be home page, and let's just add a 2 also for this, and in here we want to just navigate to this create. So we have create in here, and we can just say create. Now let's just check. Okay, now you can see we have 2 buttons. So you can see this is our create, and if I click on the home, this is our home, and if I go to the here, so you can see we are on the home page. So let's just remove this, and also we need to give some margin between these 2 buttons. And so for this let me just add in here, I think it should be, or yeah, in here I can just say mix2, and also I think we should remove this from here. Okay, now let's just bring some changes to this Flask and Vue. We want to add some style for this. For that we are going to just add So in here we need to add a style, so I'm going to just call it text style. So text style, and let's just create this text style at the bottom in here. So text style, and you can easily give your style whatever you want. For example, I want to add font size. So font size, for example, it should be 30 pixel, and also we need to just make it important because we want to override the style. And also we can just say font family, and for this we want to just use fantasy, and let's just copy this important in here. And also we can just give a color, and we can just say brown important. Okay, now let's check that how it's looking. Okay, now you can see it's much looking good, and I can click on the create. So this is our create page, and if I click on the home page, this is our home, and also I can navigate from here. So like this you can work with Vue routers in Vue 3. So now we want to fetch some data from our Flask backend to the VueJS frontend. So we want to fetch the data in our home.vue, and you can use Axios, it's a library for fetching the data, or you can use fetch method from the JavaScript, as we're using fetch method from the JavaScript. Now, so the first thing is that we need to create a method in here, and in the method we are going to fetch the data. So now in this section we can just create methods, and we want to create get articles method in here. So we are using fetch, so we can just say fetch, and after that you need to specify the URL that you want to fetch. So now let's just copy this. So for example, we want the get, and let me just copy this, and localhost port 5000 and get, and if you see our app.py, let me just open my app.py, and you can see that this is this get that in here we are getting the articles, we are querying over the all articles in our database, and after that we are returning JSONify. So in here we can specify the method. So the method is get, and also we can add headers. So for the headers we can just say content dash type, and it is application slash JSON, and after doing this it will return a promise. So we can just say .then, and we are receiving a response. After that we need to just convert the response to the JSON, and after that we are receiving the actual data, and we can just say data. For right now we are just logging the data, so we can just say console.log the data, and if there was an error we can just get that in the catch block. So error, and we can just say console.log the error. Okay, now right now we have created our get articles method. Now we need to add this in the lifecycle hooks. Now there are different lifecycle hooks that you can use. If you see a VueJS documentation, and you can see that all lifecycle hooks automatically have their this context bound to the instance, so that you can access data, computed properties, and methods. Now this means that you should not use an row function to define a lifecycle method. For example, if you're using a created lifecycle method, you cannot use the row function with that, and it's not allowed. Now you can see that we have before create, lifecycle method hook we have created. Now we are using created lifecycle hook, and it's you can see it's called synchronously after the instance is created, and at this stage the instance has finished processing the options, which means the following have been set up. Now we are going to use created, and now after the methods we can just use our created. So let me just say created method in here, and we can add this dot get articles. And now let's check that we have our articles data or not. So now you can see that in here we have error, and it's telling that access to fetch this from origin has been blocked by course policy. Now you need to install another library that's called Flask course. So I've already installed it, and after the installation you can just open your app.py file, and in here you need to import the Flask course. So from Flask _ course import course, and after that we can just add this course in here. So we can just say course, and we can pass the app. So now if we see, we will not receive that error because now we have added the Flask course library in here. And now let's check that we have this error or not, and you can see that the error is gone, and we have our two data in here. So this is the first data and this is the second data. If you see our MySQL database, we have this is the first one and this is the second data. Now we have our data, but we want to just show the data in our home page. So for that we can just open our home.view, and in here we need to create an empty articles array. So in this section we can just say data, and in the data we are returning articles. So this is an empty array. Now in here, instead of console.log, we are going to just push the data, this data, to the array that we have created. So let me just remove this, and we can just say this dot articles dot push dot data. So we are using separate operator data. So after doing this, now let's just show the data in the template section. So right now it's just, this is our home, and we can just remove this. First we are going to create a div class container, and also we can just give margin top 5. Let's just close the div, and we are going to create another div in here. And in this div we are going to use v4 directive for iterating over the data. So we can just say v4 and article in articles, and also we need to bind the key for this. And for the, if you remember, we have an ID in here. We want to bind the ID. So if you see our model, so we have ID in here, and we want to bind that ID, and we can just say article.id. Now we can create an h3 tag. First we want to show the title, even though we don't need the body in our home page, but for right now we are going to just print that. We will remove that. So in the p tag we can just say article.body, and even you can say for example article.date. We have this field also. Okay, now you can see that in here we have used div class container, and we have given a margin top 5. After that we are using v4 directive to iterate over the articles array, and also we have binded the key, the ID, the article ID, and in here we can just render the article.title.body and also .date. Now if you see, let's just see our front end that we have the data. Okay, now we don't have the data in here. It's because we have created our get articles method in here in this section, and also we have added this in the created method, but we should see the data. So I have added this .get articles in my created lifecycle hooks, and if we see this .articles.push data, and the method is get. Okay, but there's no error, and oh, now you can see that it takes some time, and this is our data, our fetched data. So this is the title, this is the body, and this is the date. This is the title, this is the body, and this is the date. Now we want to show the details of the article. For right now you can see that we are rendering the title, the body, and also the date in here. So now what I want to just show the title in my home page, and after clicking of the title I want to get the specific details about that article, for example the body and also the date and time that I have. Now for this we need to bring some change. So first we need to create another component, and in my components we can just create another file, and we can just call it article details.view. And after creating of our article details, we need to create a route for this, and we need to open our routers.js file, and let's just open our routers.js. And the first thing is that we need to import this newly created route. So let me just, so in here we can just copy one of these, and let me paste it in here. So we can just import article details, so we can just say article details, and this is article details. Now let's create another route in here, and we are going to just copy this, and let's just paste it in here. So this time this is details. Also we need to give the ID, because according to ID we are going to get the specific article. So now you can add props in here in your path and the router link, that's ID, and after that you can give the name. So we're going to give it details, and the component is article details. Also because we are using ID props, we need to just say props and make this to true. So after creating of the our route, now let's just open our home.view, and we need to bring some changes in here. So we don't need this body and also date, and so in the h3 tag, let me just copy this. Okay, now in the h3 tag we are going to create router link. So we can just say router link. Let me close the router link in here, and we can just add this article.title in the router link, and in here we can give the 2. So the 2 is we want to just navigate after clicking of the for example the title, we want to navigate to the article details, and we have given the name of details for this. So we can just say details, and also we want to send the params, and the params is that we want to send, that is ID, article.id. So along with navigating to the details, we want to send the ID to the article details component. So now after doing this, let's open our article details, and we need to create some codes in here. So the first thing is I can just create a data, and I can just return, we can just create an article, empty article in here, or we can, it should be in our empty object. And also, because we are expecting ID props, we need to give the props in here. So props and ID, the type is, we can give it number and or string, and also required, and the required is true. Now let's create our methods in here. So in this section we can just say methods, and in the methods we want to get the data, get article data. So we're going to just do some copy pasting and from this fetch. So we can just copy this, so I think we can just copy in and paste this in here. So we are fetching the data, and this time we want to change this to backtext, because we want to get the data according to the specific ID. So now in here we can just say $this.id. And the method is get, we have the headers, application JSON, and in here we are receiving a response.json. This is the data, and in here what we want to do is to set the data to the article object that we have created. So this is the article, and we want to set the data to this object. So we can just say this.article data to this.article. And if there was an error, we can just catch that in the catch block. So now let's add our created lifecycle hook in here. So created, and we need to just call this dot get articles. Now let's check our new functionality that it's working or not. The template requires child element. We need to, now we are getting the data, now we need to add the data in our template. So in the template section, I'm going to just create div class container, and I can just close the div. I can give a margin top, so empty to 5, and after that let's just render in the h2 tag the title. So we can just say article.title. Let's first check the title that it's working or not. Okay, now you can see that we have link in here, and if I click on this, you can see that we have details and ID 2, and this is the title that we have in the details page. Now if I click on another one, so you can see the ID is 3, and we are navigating to the details page, and this is my another data, this is the title. Now let's just do all. So also I'm removing this tag in here, and then the details, where is it? It should be in the home.view. Yeah, this is, we have one more in here. Okay, now we have the title. Also we want to just create a p class in here, so we can just say p class, and we can give margin top 3. Let's close this p tag, and in here we can just say article dot body. Also we have another one that's for the date, I think. Yeah, so published date, not data, but it's date, and we can say article.date. Now we are going to check the new functionality. Okay, now if I click on this, so you can see that this is the title, this is the body, and this is the publication date. And we have the same for this, my another data, and you can see that this is the title, this is the body, and also this is the publication date. Now let's just add some style for this links, for the title links. Now I'm going to open my home.view. So in here I can just add a class link style, and let's just create this link style. We can give font weight, and I want it should be bold. The color is black, and so the color is black. We can give a text decoration, and it should be none. Let's just do this for the hover, and we can just copy this link style, and this time hover. We don't need the bold. We can just give a color. I want it should be gray. Okay, now you can see that this is we have now the color is changed. Also, let's just add a horizontal line in here. So in the div section, after the now in the h3 we can just add a, or yeah, after the h3, and here we can add an hr. This should be in here. And now you can see that we have a line in here. Now we can just click on this, and we can just go to the home, and we have the data, and we have also the details of the data, for example ID3. Now it's time to work on the creating of the article. So now we have learned that how you can get the data and how you can get the details of the data. Now we want to work on the create. So we have already created the create button, and it's just a simple MPT component. Let's open the create in here, and this is create.view. Let me just close this home.view and article details. Okay, so in the create page, we are going to create a div class container. So div class container, and we can close the div. We can give a margin top 4. Also we need to create a form. So form, let's close the form. So after creating the form, now we need an input field for the title and also a text area for the body. Also we need to create 3 data, so one for the title, one for the body, and one for the error. So first let's just create our data in the script section. Let me just say data, and we want to return so the first one is the title, and it is null. We have body, and it is null, and also the error, it's also null. Okay, now in the form, the first one is the input for the title. We can just say input. So the type is text. The class is form control, and also we can give a placeholder. Please enter your title, so we can say your title. And also we need to bind the title in here that we have created, so we can just say v model and title. Let's add a br tag in here, and now we need to create the text area, so we can just say text area, and we don't need the name, ID, and the number of column we don't need. We can just give a number of rows, so for right now we can just leave it like 10. Let's add the class, so the class is form control, and we need to add a placeholder, and it is please enter your body or description. Also we need to bind the body in here, so v model, and this is body. Also we need to create a button in this section, so we can just say button, and it is publish article. We need to give a class, so the class is btn success. We can give a margin top to 4. Now let's check that we have the form or not. So now we can see that we have the title and we have the body, and if I go back to the home page, and if I click on the create, so we have our title and we have our body. Now let's work on our inserting the data. So after the data, we need to create methods, and the method is insert article. So first we want to check, and we want to check the emptiness of these fields, so we can just say if not this dot title or this dot body. So if there was empty field, we want to just throw an error. Please add all fields, and in the else case we can just fetch we can just add our data. Again, I'm going to just copy some codes, because we can just open our home, and from the home let's just copy this get articles, paste it in here, and we will bring some changes. So now the first thing is that we need to change this to add. If you see our app.py file, so we have add in here, and we need to add that route in this section. So this is add. We have the method, and it should be post. We have the headers, and also we need to add the body. So we can just say body, and we can just say json.stringify. We have title, and it should be this dot title. We have body, and this should be this dot body. So after that we have .then, we are receiving response.json, and in here instead of data, so we are going to just navigate. After adding the data, we want to navigate to the home page, so we can just say this dot $router dot push, and we want to just navigate to the home page, and if there was an error, we can just catch that error. Now let's just add this insert article. Let me just copy this, and we want to add that in our form. Add submit, and we can just insert article. Also, we want to just prevent the page from the refreshing, and we want to just add the prevent. Now we want to check the new functionality that we can add some articles or not. Also, before that, we need to show the error if there was an empty field. So we have a check in here, and let's just at the bottom after the form, I want to show that in this section. I can just create a div, and in here we want to use vf directive, so we can just check that if we have the error, vf error, we want to show the error, and we are using a bootstrap class, an alert class for the bootstrap, so we can just say class, and this is alert warning, alert this missable, and we can just add a fit show margin top to 5, and we can add a role, and it should be alert, and in here we can show the error message. So in the strong tag, error. Now let's check the new functionality. Now if I leave the fields blank, and if I click on the publish article, you can see that I am receiving please add all fields. Now let's just add new data, so we can just say this is the new data that is added by Vue frontend, and we can just copy this for the body. Let's just add a body, and let's just publish the article, and we are not seeing anything in here. Alright guys, now in here we need to just change this to not, and so if not this dot title and not this dot body. Now we can check our new functionality. This is the new data added by Vue frontend, and we can just publish, and again now you can see that the data is added, and this is the new data added by Vue frontend, and if you see that we have the title, body, and also the publish date. And if you check your MySQL database, and you can see that we have the new data in here. Let's just add another data, and now if I leave the fields blank, it will throw an error. And if I add welcome to Flask and VueJS course, this is a course that's how you can use Flask backend with VueJS front end, and let's just add published article, and you can see that I'm navigating to the home page, and I have the new data in here. So the title, body, and also this is the published date. Now we want to work on deleting functionality. So right now you can see that we are on the details page, and in the details page we want to create a button for deleting of the specific article or data. Now let's just open our article details in here, and in the article details we are going to create a button. So after this published date, we want to create a button, and we can just say button, and so it is delete, and let's add a class, and it is btn danger, mx3 and m23, margin x3 and margin top 3. Now if you see, we have a button. Let's check. You can see that we have a delete button in here. Now let's create our method for deleting of the data. So in here I'm going to just create another method. It is delete article, and we are going to just copy this from here. Let me just copy this and paste it at the top in this section. So this is delete, and we want to delete the data according to the specific ID. So now we need to change this. If you see our app.py, we have a delete route in here. We have update and we have delete, so we are deleting according to the ID. Now we need to just add this delete route in here instead of get, and the method is delete. We have headers. The content type is application JSON, and after deleting, so we don't need this JSON response.json, and we don't need the data because we are deleting and we are not receiving anything. And instead we are just routing. We want to push the route to the home, our home page after deleting. So in here we can just say this dot $router dot push, and we want to just navigate to the home page after deleting of the data. And if there was an error, we can just catch that in here. Now let's just add this in our button, delete button, and then here we can just say add click, and we can use delete article. Now let's check that it's working or not. I'm in the home page, and let's click on this, and I want to delete this. If I click on this, you can see that the data is deleted, and now I have 3 data in here. Now if you see your MySQL database, you will see that I don't have that data in here. Now for example, I want to delete this ID3, my other data. Let me just click on this, and I want to delete. So I'm back in the home page, and now if I see, this data is gone, and now we have just 2 data in here. Now let's create our last functionality, that is updating or editing the articles. So we have delete button. What we want to do is to create another component for the editing of the articles. So I'm going to just click on the components, and in here I want to create a new file. I'm going to call it article edit.vue. So for right now we are going to just create a view template in here, and let me just say edit page. And now let's just open our routers.js, and we need to add our router in here. So I'm going to open my routers.js, and first thing is that we need to import article edit, and I'm going to just copy and paste it in here. It is article edit, and from components, and let's just copy this and paste this in this section. Now this time in the routers, we are going to change this to edit. We want to edit according to the ID, so by this reason we need to pass the ID as a props, and we can give a name. It is article edit, and the component is article edit, and the props is the 2 because we are using props. Now after this we are going to open our article details, because we want the edit button along with the delete button. So we have the delete, and now we need to create our update button. So for this we are going to use router link. We can just say router link, and let's just close the router link. And so we need to pass the 2 in here, and the 2 is we need to give the name of the component. So the name of the component is article edit, so article edit. And also we need to pass the params in here, so we can just say params. So to router link, so 2 is name, and it's article edit. Also we have the params, and the params is we can just say id article.id. So it is 2. We need to bind this. So now we have a router link, and when we click, also we need to add a class for this, so I forgot to add. So the class is btn success, and we can just give a margin top of 3. So we have created a router link, and we want to use this router link as a button, and we want to, when we click on that, we want to navigate to another component that's article edit that we have already created, and that requires params or props, and we want to pass the article.id as a props or as a params. Now if we see in here we have a button in here, but let's just change this to, for example, update. So now, okay, now let's just update. Okay, now you can see that this is update. Now if I click on update, you can see that I'm navigated to the edit page. And so now let's work on our article edit, and we need to create a form, and in the form we want to populate the data, that we want to update. So now let's just copy some codes. So we need input field and also a text area with a button, and we can just get these things from the our create component. So let me just copy this, and in the article edit, let me just close this home because I don't need this. Now in here, first I need to create a div class container, and I can just say container. We can give a margin top to 4, and let's close the div in here. So we can just add so this is our input field. We have a text, we have place. So we need to create these data type data. We will create that. Also we can just go to the create. So we have a text area with a button. So text area with the button, and let's just add that in here. Also we are going to just copy this div. If there's an error, we want to show the error, so by this reason we need to just copy this also. And let me just add that I think, oh okay, now also we need to create a form in here. I forgot to create the form, and after the div class, so form, and let's just close the form in here like this. Okay, now after form we can add this error, so if there is an error, and also we need to just copy these data types, and let me just copy this, and we can just add that in here. So now let's just check the new functionality, and if I click on this, and after that if I click on the update, so we have on the update page, let me just refresh this. Okay, now you can see please enter your title and please enter your body. We need to change this to update article. Okay, now we want to populate, when we click on the edit button, we need to populate the data in here. So for example, the title and also the body. Now for that we need to use navigation guard. So if you see the navigation guard, now as the name suggests, the navigation guards provided by VueRouter are primarily used to guard navigation, either by redirecting it or cancelling it. Now there are different navigation guards that you can use. We are going to use before router enter. So now let's just so in here we can just say before router enter, and now we need to give to and also from and next. So first we want to check that if to.params.id is not undefined, we are going to use our fetch and get method. So let's just copy this from the home. Let me just open my home, and from here we can just grab the get. This is the get articles. Let's just copy this, and we want to paste that in here. So this is the fetch localhost get, and we need to change this to backtext. And in this section we can use to.params.id. The method is get, and this is the content type. We are receiving response. We want to convert that to the JSON. This is the data. Now in here we want to just say return next, and we can just use VM, and now we want to set the title and also the body. So vm.title to data.title, and also vm.body data.body. So we have vm.title, and we want to set that to data.title, and we want to set the body to the body. And so now in the else case, let me just so in here in the else case we can just say else we want to just return next, so return also next. So now let's just check this that it is working or not. Okay, now if I click on this, and after that if I go to the update, we are not seeing the title and the body. It's not a router, but it is a route. So before route enter, also this is double equal sign. So before, it's not router, but it's before route enter. Now let's check. So if I click on this, and if I click on the update button, so you can see that the data is populated in here. And if I go to another data, so welcome to Flask and Vue, if I click on the update, you can see that we are receiving the data in here. Now let's just work on our update functionality. So for that, the first thing is that in the article edit we need to create props, because we want to just we need ID props, and we want to update the data according to the specific ID. Now let's just add ID in here, and the type is, you can just say number and a string, and the required is true. So after this, let's create our methods in here. We can just say methods, and in the methods we want update article. In the update article, we are going to just copy codes from the create, and let me just copy all of this, and let me just copy and paste this in the article edit. So let's just I think this one is more, or we can add one more in here. Yeah. Now so first we are going to check that if the title and the body is not empty. If that was empty, we are just throwing an error that please add all fields. And after that, we are using our fetch method. This time we want to update. If you see our app.py file, and we have update in here, and we need to just use this, and we want to update according to the specific ID that we have. Now let's just convert this to the backtext, and we can just use update, and after that $sign this dot ID. So we want to update according to the title that we have. So the method is put, and we have header, and also we are sending the body, the title, and also the body. We are receiving a response, and after that, when we update the data, we want to just navigate to the home page. And after doing this, let's just add this update article in the form that we have created, and this is the form, and we can just say add submit. We want to just use this, and also we want to prevent the page from the refreshing. Now let's check that it's working or not. So now this is my home. Let me just change the second one. This welcome to Flask, and let me just say updated, and let me just this is updated data, and let's just click on update article. Now we are navigated to the home page, and you can see that this is updated. And if you see now you can see that the title is updated, and also the body is updated. Now let's update this data. Let me click on this, and we are updating this title, and the body is also updated. And let me just click on update article, and we are navigated to the home page, and you can see we are updating this title, and if you see that the body is also updated. So like this you can work with the updating functionality. If you have any question, please let me know. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel. Also, if you want to support me, you can support me on my Patreon page.